Thank you, Kate, and thank you, everyone. Thank you particularly to the participants in the last session, and Andrew for your facilitation of it. I have to say that was in 1 hour or 45 minutes. I think that was a very strong and comprehensive tour of really the challenges of today and the challenges of tomorrow, and our little role in that. What I wanted to do was first of all to say thank you to everyone for coming along and participating as speakers or as participants online or in person in our 10th birthday. Now, 10th birthday coming up, we could have decided to do something kind of in our little enclosed space, and we probably could have invited some of the same speakers to come along and talk and share some thoughts with us. We decided we're an institution about transparency. We're an institution about supporting the public process, supporting particularly the parliamentary process, and that the right thing to do would be to invite anyone to come along. And so I'm really pleased that so many of you have come along today and have participated. I was going to try and summarise what I take out as some of the key themes of the day, and the one word which keeps coming back to me is the word institution and institutions. And right from the beginning, when Rob Oakeshott was talking about how the PBO was created and why it was created, it was in order to institutionalise something in our political system that would, as he put it, that would level up or otherwise provide some support to participants in that process. And the idea was you had to institutionalise change in order to get it to stick, in order to get the values to actually hold over a long period of time. And like Kate, I was also disappointed that his first two pages of his autobiography, which were about the PBO, actually hit the cutting room floor in the editing suite. But that was a really interesting talk, and Rob related that very much to today, to basically say the job of institutional reform and the job of institutional design for Australia's political system, for our parliamentary system, well, it's not over yet. It's actually got other things to do. And he cited two institutions in particular, the NACC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, and the Voice of Parliament, as institutions where it would be useful to think about what we've done with this institution. And he also cited the ANAO, what we think done about these institutions in thinking about how those ones might work. Then we had Mark Hadley from the Congressional Budget Office, and he talked about, amongst other things, the PBO against an OECD framework, but also against his own framework of what the Congressional Budget Office is. And one of the things that struck me most about that was here is a story that starts in 1974, 1975, and he showed a very clear timeline that the institution has evolved. And the institution hasn't stayed the same. Its mandate has changed, and that in fact that was right and appropriate, and it has helped it to play the role that it plays in its political system. Julian Hill made similar comments as the current chair of the JCPAA, and therefore the chair of the oversight body that looks after the PBO. He also stressed the importance of the institution and the importance of ensuring that we looked always to, if you like, what the mandate of an institution like this might be. And he talked about where the mandate had been, and he talked about where, in fact, the mandate might need to go in order to kind of play a good and strong role into the future. Danielle gave a great talk about data, and again, I think the theme of institutions and the strength of institutions to actually manage data, curate data, build the skills, build the capability around that. It was, for me, it was a very strong theme as well, and it did make me think. You talked about the golden age of data, which is within all of our grasps, but we may yet not grasp it. And so, how do you make sure that you do grasp it? And again, it comes down to strength of institutions, I think, in many ways. And I think you had an excellent point that you made about well, how much do we worry about misuse of analysis, and how much do we worry about misuse of data? It will happen, but can we put some arrangements around it that give us more confidence that in fact the good analysis will win through? You won't stop the bad analysis, but maybe the good analysis just needs to have a stronger leg up along the way. Anthony, and thank you so much for coming up and talking to us during what is your election period, and it's already started, but as you said, quite an interesting and challenging election period for you. But again, you've done a great thing in terms of creating, out of a very small resource pool, creating something dynamic, something valuable, something that supports the political process, but also, as it says in your mandate says explicitly, support the community. And you're running with that really, really hard. And one of the things that I will hope that one day there will actually be more than 2 ongoing parliamentary budget officers in Australia, and that other jurisdictions will also see the value in institutions like this, and that we can have really serious conversations around, for example, the question of what do these institutions collectively think the situation is, or the fiscal situation is in Australia. One of the things that has surprised me in this role is, and I kept thinking, surely we can't be the ones who have to do this. But we produce a document called the National Fiscal Outlook, which is just a collection. I mean, it's hard work. But hey, it's collecting data, but it's collecting data from different sources and trying to put it together in a single framework and a single context, so you can get a picture about what's happening in Australia. And why there isn't and hasn't already been something that does that, I don't know, but there hasn't been, and we're playing that role. And I look forward one day to being able to say the network of parliamentary budget officers is playing that role, of actually making sure that data is collected, analysed, and put on a common footing across Australia. And I will also say, I think you showed, Anthony, the absolute power of making investments in technology and making investments in the skills to use technology to harness the data that Danielle was talking about in particular. And I will say, every time I see your stuff, I get a little bit jealous. Because we are behind you on that, and we are working hard to catch up on that. A couple of years ago, in fact a year and a bit ago, we made a great leap from our original birth suite of operating systems, and we made a big leap into a protected cloud with a fully integrated suite of services and apps, and really for us that is the start of being able to kind of better harness data, better utilise data, and better make it accessible to people. And I think that's one of the other key things is it's good and important that institutions such as this and such as ours actually support parliamentarians. But parliamentarians have changing needs. Parliamentarians have changing ways in which they want to access material. They want to use it in different ways. and we need to respond to that, and we need to actually meet those challenges going forward. And we're looking forward to, in the next 12 months, to taking 2 further leaps down that path. One is to properly modernise our website and therefore enable us to provide more interactive services. And the other is to enable parliamentarians to interact with us more directly through a portal that they control a lot of what's in there. And we're looking for both of those things to be in place well before the next federal election. So we are trying to take steps down that path. And then the session we just had. I think Andrew and Stephen and Carolee and Melinda, it was great to hear you talk and think in such big picture terms, because often all of us in so many aspects of our lives, we are very much focused on the day-to-day, the here and now, and we have to be, and it's important that we be. But every now and then you need to lift up, and you need to lift up to what's going on around you. And I think each of you raised some really important challenges and some really important questions. And again, I think, I heard that word institution. I heard it several times. In fact, I think I heard it from most, if not all of you, about investing in institutions and seeing institutions as things to manage, as things to create, to nurture, to respect, and also to use as part of the democratic system, the system of trust and the system of responsibility and accountability. And I think each of you had examples about how institutions in general in the public world, but how this particular institution, which had our little section of the democratic system, how we play our role there. Each of you also throughout the day has really given us a whole range of different things that we could think about, that we could work towards, analyse, or otherwise try and nut our way through. The one that kept coming back for me was sustainability, fiscal sustainability. I mean, we are a fiscal institution, and whether we get to the stage where we talk about benefits as much as we talk about costs, we will always be talking about costs, even if we talk about the benefits, and being able to understand the dynamics of sustainability, and not just the current position, not just where we might be next year, but what are the big drivers? What are the big things that drive the numbers to go one way or the other way? What are the things that are levers, and what are the things that are not levers in the process? Those things, I think, seem to be really fundamental, given the risk environment, given the challenging environment that people have talked about throughout the day. The role for an institution like us to be thinking about sustainability, thinking about risk, showing what happens if certain risks might eventuate. What would that do? Showing how policies, for example, that we might be requested to cost, how they would behave under certain circumstances. We talk a lot in our costings, as many of you would have seen, we talk a lot about uncertainty. And I wonder from today whether we shouldn't just be talking about the sources of uncertainty. We should also be talking a bit more about what we can say to add dimension to that uncertainty, and what we can say to kind of make that a little bit more tangible than what to date. I think we often talk about risk and uncertainty in abstract terms. Perhaps we can try and talk about them a little bit more in concrete terms to help our parliamentarian cohort in particular to really think about and understand what the policy is that they've asked us to cost. So I think there's been, some great themes there, and I know that for a long time I'll be kind of digesting some of those messages in particular. I did want to just show you very briefly, and this is probably the last thing I'll do, is show you very briefly just a couple of things that we're doing, which I think are down that path of exploring consequences, fiscal consequences, and down the path of exploring fiscal sustainability. And I do think that, if there's one theme that is a dominant theme for us as an institution, I think fiscal sustainability is it. And the theme that sits most strongly alongside that is transparency. And transparency in how we do our work, transparency that we set out our assumptions, we set out our models, we are open about what our data sources are, we are open to the risk that comes by putting that out, and we're open to the opportunity that's created to improve things. Danielle, I did want to say that you showed in your presentation a slide from our webpage. It was the data portal, and I'm so happy that you did that, because I know it sounds really, really nerdy, but I actually think one of the most important things we do is actually living on that data portal, and it's actually it's our attempt to construct a historical data series, which to many people won't sound that exciting, but when you are trying to look at the long term, when you're trying to look at change, when you're trying to look at dynamics and relationships, having a good, strong, consistent data series and making it available to people, as we've done in our Excel spreadsheet format at the moment for our data series, historical data series, is really important. And in the last maybe year and a half, we've had a series of people, some coming in on secondments, some here long term, others, some doing it out of love, some doing it out of just an attraction for data entry. That's an in-joke, I will say, that we have actually started building this thing up. And we built it up so that for the last budget, which was the October budget, for that budget, we were able to push back functional analysis, which is a nerdy thing on the spending side of the budget. We pushed that back to the 1964. We've already got a debt data series back to 1901. And on the quiet, we either have or are about to add the revenue series right back to 1901. So we will be progressing. It's up. Okay, you heard it here first. So all of you who are really keen on seeing revenue and debt since 1901, go look at our website right now. and as over time we nut our way through various documents and budget papers, we'll push back the functional splits as far as we can as well. One thing I will say about transparency and accountability is transparency is not always the same as more. Sometimes transparency is just being able to find stuff. And sometimes transparency is just actually knowing that a thing that's here is treated consistently over there. And so that's a big area that is part of our focus. So that's something we're doing. I'm going to show you just very quickly a couple of slides about two other things that we're going to be doing. One more. Yep. So every year we do a little document called Beyond the Budget. Beyond the Budget is an attempt to basically try and add more around the medium-term projections. So the budget publishes medium-term projections, and we try and and analyse it more from our perspective, a kind of fiscal sustainability perspective, and we look at within the framework of government forecasts and within the framework of government policy, we look at what's happening with different aspects of the budget. And one of the things we do and we want to try and do is to make sure that we stay really focused on a variety of different measures and a variety of different ways of thinking about sustainability. So this is something we're going to be releasing, hopefully. We're aiming for about a 6-week time lag between the budget and when we put this out. And we're also going to do it differently this year. We're going to try and publish it in HTML, make it easier for people to navigate, make it easier for people to find. We'll get the charts to do more of the story, and we'll have the ability for people to kind of come in and drop in and drop out of the document a little bit more easily than in the past. As part of the transparency thing, we make all of our underlying data available to people concurrently, and we'll be doing that here as well. We already have some tools, interactive tools that live on our website, and those tools do get used. And in fact, I'm actually surprised how many people, pleasantly surprised, how many people use a little tool we've already got called the public debt interest calculator, which I would have thought would be at the nerdy end of nerdy, but it gets a couple of hundred users a month, and so it does show there is some demand for this sort of thing, and people can come and consult that at any point in time. Now, so that's one thing, and we're aiming for that 6 weeks from the budget. It would be sometime in December, I think. Now, another thing we're working on, and this is a kind of we're working on trying to increase our focus on interactivity and on enabling people to kind of see the dynamics of a budget, how it responds to particular things. So we're working on I'll call it a consultation draft of a tool, because I wouldn't want to claim too much for it. I would just want to claim that it's the beginning of something. And we're looking to have initially as an Excel document. Ultimately, when we get to a new website, it'll be different. And a tool that allows people to kind of have a look at how the budget responds to particular kinds of policies or changes in an indicative sense. So this is not going to be producing PBO costings in this form. This is going to be producing indicative analysis. And then our goal is to iterate, to keep building tools and keep building the ability for any parliamentarian, any citizen to interact with these things, ask their own questions, and have a good sense about what the answer would look like. So Mark Hadley showed at one stage in his presentation the tool that the CBO has. And in fact, if you remember that slide, those of you who remember that slide, you might see that some of what is here, which is a kind of a mock-up, is very similar to what was in the CBO's existing tool, which is the ability to kind of, within parameters, make some changes to policy specs, for example, and to relatively easily generate some kind of result which is going to have kind of an order of magnitude meaningfulness to it. So this is something we think gives rise both to, as Danielle put it, trying to grasp the challenge of the golden opportunity, but also some of the risks, and some of the risks of misconstruction or misattribution. So we will take those things into account very seriously, and including, I think, Danielle, your suggestion about kind of needs to be codes of conduct for these things. and we take that very seriously in thinking about how we go with this. So that one's not ready to go onto the net at this point in time, but I'm flagging it as an intent, and I'm flagging it as something that we want to work towards, because the goal is understand fiscal sustainability and enable people to analyse drivers and to see where how things operate. So those are two things that we're working on. We continue to work extensively with our parliamentary colleagues, and I think Julian Hill's comment about thank you for the costing you gave me last night is probably the first and fastest turnaround I've ever seen for someone being given a costing and then acknowledging it publicly. So I guess I can talk about the fact that we did that one. And other than that, I think I want to leave it there. The theme of the last section was very much along the lines of there are big challenges ahead, and we're in the middle of them. We have a political system and we have an economy that has to adjust significantly to address those things. I think the PBO is an institution that can continue to grow, can continue to enhance its contribution to Parliament and to the broader community. And I thank all the speakers for coming along today. And I'm really proud that so many of the speakers who talked today are also members of our expert panel. And that's a great comfort for us as we navigate our own way through this task. Thank you very much.